I've been using this Bosch palm router for longer than I care to remember, really, and it's never failed to deliver. It's brilliant. I love it to bits. There's one feature I wish it had though, and that's variable speed. So to compensate for that, I thought I'd treat myself to one of these. So we've got our bars for our parallel fence. The parallel fence itself, that's a little dink. Bag of tools. The fixed base. The router mounted in the plunge base. Dust extraction connector and an edge dust extraction connector. So the first thing I want to know is how easy is it to change bases? And the base change, at least to take it out of here, is really very simple. Undo the clasp, pull the body out. Now to pop it into this base, we need to take this collar off and thread it onto the router. And then line up this channel with this wee pin in the body. And then the router drops down onto that collar. There's a couple of little clips there. Need to make sure that they're in place. And then I can use this wonderful idea to set the height of the bit. And then once I've got the height set, I can lock it off and I'm good to go. That's really very good. I like that much more than the Bosch. The Bosch has a wee small wheel here and a threaded bar in the back, and you merely turn this wheel, undoing the clasp of course, turn the wheel to raise it up and down, but I've broken mine. So I can't demonstrate that. In the hand, the Bosch feels lighter and this rubber collar is nice and pleasant to hold. The DeWalt doesn't have that, but it doesn't feel ungainly. It's just slightly larger and slightly heavier, but still small enough to wield should you feel the need. So I'm going to take it back out of here. And pop it back into the plunge base. And when putting it back in the plunge base, there's a stop at the bottom that the router itself just hits up against. Then you can lock it down in place. So when it's in the plunge base, it really feels quite substantial. It's very nice. The locking mechanism for the plunge has got a spring on it. Again, it's not too heavy a spring. It's just about right, really. And as soon as you leave it go, it'll spring back and lock it in place, which is cool. The depth scale on the side is relatively clear, easy to see. Locking mechanism for the height adjuster, and there's a fine adjuster here that you can use just to wind it up a bit or back it off a bit more, and the turret guide at the bottom that the height adjuster backs onto has got your 3 standard height sections, but also this wee adjustable one. So it really seems on the surface of things that DeWalt have given this quite a bit of thought. So, how difficult then is it to fit the dust shroud? Well, that's not too onerous a task either. It's a little slot there, and then there's a wee lug on the back. I don't know whether that's going to last for an awful lot of time. So that's just a wee bit of plastic. I can see that breaking off. However, there is the ability to lock it in place with one of these little thumb screws. So regardless of whether that clip does break or not, you can still keep it in place with that, and it's held fairly solid. I really am quite impressed so far. Let's take that out again. So going back to the fixed base, which is the main thing I'm interested in. On the Bosch, I've had this tiny square base on it for as long as I can remember. So I'm going to be interested to see how different this feels, if at all. And if I'm not overstruck on that, then I can put that base on. So I'm going to get this set up for the main job I bought it for, which is putting a small round over on the edge of a chopping board. So I'll start by using this piece of waste to set the height. And I'm just going to wind that down. That is lovely to use. That really is nice and pleasant, simple and straightforward. So let's check that for depth. That felt easier than setting the Bosch. Quite pleasant to do. So, let's see how it feels. That is lovely, very pleasant to use. So let's have a look at the parallel fence. For a small lightweight router, that really is quite a substantial fence. That feels pretty good. Feels quite good. So there's a little 2-flute straight bit in there. That's worth noting that there's a groove for the locating pin on both sides so that you can make sure the power button faces towards you. Where's my test piece? So let's see if we can route a groove 20mm in from the edge of that timber. So I've drawn a line at 20mm in just to simulate having to set it up to an exact point to see how it feels. It really is a light spring. Let's just take the line out, lock that down, and then we'll set that as our 0, and I'll use the height adjuster on it to give me a 5mm deep cut. That felt really good. For such a small, lightweight router, I think it's extremely capable. One point I would make that it is a very small, it is a very lightweight router, even though the plunge base gives it a really substantial feel. So you've just got to keep a hold of it to make sure it doesn't drift, but that's not a downside at all. I keep referring to the Bosch because I've used the Bosch for a number of years and I'm very comfortable and familiar with it. So I'm just using it as a reference point for comparison. The Bosch is lighter and the Bosch is a little thinner to grip, but the Bosch is a 600 watt motor and the DeWalt's a 900 watt motor. Let me unplug that a minute while I'm waving it around in the air. So the DeWalt is more powerful than the Bosch, but both are extremely capable machines. Forgot the collar. Wonder how often I'll do that. I think my preference is going to be to reach for the Bosch when I want to route around on an edge of a piece of material where I don't have a lot of reference to balance the router on, such as that, merely because it's that little bit lighter and that little bit easier for me to grip. I've got relatively small hands. I'm quite a delicate little thing, really. So the Bosch feels just a tad more comfortable than the DeWalt, and I think that rubber grip just makes it a little nicer. So if I'm doing these edges on a piece of 18-20mm, I'd probably instinctively go for the Bosch, but that's not to say the DeWalt's not easily capable of doing that job. I'm absolutely delighted with it. I think what you get for the money is absolutely fantastic. Dust extraction shroud for the fixed base, dust extraction shroud for the plunge base, an alternative base for the fixed base. I believe that's for the fixed base. No, could be wrong. No, That's for the fixed base, and that gives you the ability to use the guide bush that comes along with it. Very well thought out. I'll put the prices of the two different routers along with links in the description below for you. Well, that's all I've got to say about the DeWalt for now. I'm going to crack on and give it some serious use over the next few weeks, and I'll give you an update to let you know whether I'm still as enamored with it as I am at the moment. So thank you very much for watching, and hopefully see you next time. Ta-ra!